So this is the book that helped me truly realize that I just apparently cannot stand realistic fiction. There's nothing wrong with the book. I just don't care. So, Tell the Wolves I'm Home is another book about grief. It's by Carol Rifka Brunt. It came out in 2013, and I guess I would call it teen fiction, but also gay fiction. June's uncle had AIDS, and this is during the AIDS epidemic, so people are misinformed, and he died during it. And her mom, like, she's a little bit bitter about the fact that she never got to be like a photographer, or like an artist and a photographer, and go do what she wanted because she decided to have kids, and that has something to do with her brother for some reason. And June loved her uncle, but she was also scared of like the whole AIDS thing. Her uncle was the only one who got her. Yeah. So there's his boyfriend also. His name is Toby. He also has AIDS, and he now lives in the apartment on his own. And her mom and sister, I guess, hate that. And apparently, Finn told Toby about June, and asked that he like look after her, and also for some reason asked this child to look after Toby as well. Toby dies by the end of the book. Um, Her family is really rude about it, and there's also a whole like subplot with her sister being a drunk asshole, but June is like, oh, my sister's just lonely, because I guess they were close before they started talking to Toby, but now that Toby's back in their lives, June takes up all of her time with Toby, not with Toby, with Finn, and now I guess her sister's also taking that onto herself, which is stupid. Um, like Finn was also June's godfather, and her sister said that she just didn't want to like intrude on their time together. I have an older sister who has a god family that we were pretty close to. Like, they never made an effort to exclude me, and I never felt like I had to be excluded. I don't. That's really stupid. Finn didn't push her sister away. He was like, hey, do you want to come with us? And she said that she didn't want to because she didn't want to intrude on their time together. And then is bitchy about the fact that she and June aren't close anymore. I just. Also, not even me on my gay shit with this book. Yes, this book takes place during the AIDS pandemic, and like lots of people were scared, lots of people didn't know what was going on. However, Finn and his sister, so June's mom, their problems run deeper than Finn being gay, because she has this whole thing about him being able to go off and be an artist and do whatever he wants. Meanwhile, she's like an accountant and has two kids, and it's like, that's your own fault. You're the one who decided to have children. I'm not saying that you can't travel also with children. I just know that it's harder, and like, if you don't get to do the things that you want to do because you wanted to have kids, you're the one who decided to have the kids. And like, even if you didn't decide to have kids, you did something where you knew that there was a risk that you could end up with a child. So it's her own fault. Everybody in this book, at least as much as I read, everybody but Finn was unlikable. So, and he dies in like the first like 4 chapters. So, yeah. Next book is called Time Tourist Outfitters. I thought this book was gonna be fun. It wasn't. The main character is Wilda. She makes clothes for time tourists, which is fun. I tried to. Part of the problem with these books, that I mean, like, they're not new books, but they're new to me, is that like I'm trying to write down the things that I believe are important, but it's hard to when I've never read a book in the series before. Um, there are rules of time and time maxims, and like there are certain things that you can and cannot do, but apparently there's like a whole underground thing of like people creating time portals that are unregulated, and Wilda gets caught up in that because a dude just shows up at their shop, like he collapses out of thin air, and he's got some undescribable disease, and now for some reason Wilda, because she used to be a time agent, has to be the one to go back in time and figure out what he's infected with. Um, yeah. So, I didn't care about this book. It should have been about that, about the underground time travel thing. He's not about this dude who's sick. I guess I just didn't. It's been a while since I read the Amazon listing for the book, so. Um, like, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know what they look like. I don't know if I'm supposed to believe that they are all white because they're in Canada. Also, something about a second civil war, which you cannot just skip past. There was a second civil war in the U.S. that left New York looking like a wasteland. You can't just skip past a detail like that. That's pretty important, especially for Canada because they're right there. What? Um, like, you can't not describe characters for the sake of inclusion, like a certain Miss Jo Rowling that I swear to God. I don't know if she's a hack fraud. Again, that's another video for another time. Um, and also, like, they send Wilda. Why do they send Wilda? Just because she used to be a time agent doesn't mean that she's a good candidate for this. She doesn't want to go. She stopped being a time agent for a reason, and y'all just gonna send her back out there like she didn't want to stop being a time agent. It doesn't make any sense to me. I just... And then, like, so you're not allowed to go anywhere less than 300 years ago to avoid the grandfather clause. So, like, you can't go back to the 1920s. However, like, we're time traveling. There's always the possibility that you might get infected with something because, like, things like hygiene and medicine just aren't what they were back then. You could eat bread that you think is perfectly fine and get ergot poisoning if you go back far enough. Like, that's just how things were at the time. So you're telling me that this group of time traveling fucks doesn't have, like, an archive of all of the possible diseases that a person could get, all of the ones that have been documented throughout history? I mean, like, besides hysteria, like the actual hysteria, not the offensive one, besides hysteria, there's a cure for for most things, not all of them, but there's a cure for most things that happened back then. So I don't understand why. The theme with that book, I suppose, is just details, because details are important no matter what you think. You can't not describe your characters for sake of inclusion. I hate it when authors try to do that. I mean, you can subscribe if you feel like it. I'd certainly appreciate it.